So here to speak more about what we should expect next is Illinois Representative Michael Quigley, who is also a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Wow, so there's been a lot of dissection since both of these people have spoke, but I'm just curious what your overall impression has been about this since it came out.
Just another crazy week in Washington, D.C., unfortunately. Just recall what we've seen. The most important law enforcement officer in the United States said he felt directed by the President of the United States not to go forward on a criminal investigation. It's just something you'd never expect.
It's interesting now because the President has said he'd be willing to testify under oath. You think that's going to happen?
I can't imagine his people in a million years would let him testify under oath. And remember, when you testify in front of Congress, it's not a question of whether you raise your hand. When you testify to Congress, you are always under oath.
So he is denying claims. In fact, after seeing the former FBI director speaking, he said that he was vindicated, and he is denying claims, though, that he in any way tried to intercept and say, you know, call off this investigation of Michael Flynn. What's interesting is earlier in the week, he had alluded to some recordings that he had that were going to prove that, in fact, he was not guilty of what Comey was saying. What does it mean if there are recordings and the House or the Intelligence Committee is asking for those? Is that something that they can get hold of and actually try to use that against him?
Well, they would find out if there are recordings.
Because we don't know that there are.
Yeah, he has said they are, then he sort of hedged his bet. Clearly, there will be subpoenas for those recordings. Obviously, Watergate taught us that those recordings should be turned over. I think the decision was 8-0. Then it will be interesting, right? The last president to reject a Supreme Court order, Andrew Jackson, whose portrait is now hanging in this president's Oval Office.
Interesting. Okay, what is the likelihood you think that there would be recordings? Is this a common thing for presidents to do?
Yeah, I think you've seen recordings since Kennedy, Johnson, clearly people taking notes about what took place in the Oval Office. So it's the only thing we have, because what we learned this week was he asked everyone else to leave the room when he spoke to Mr. Comey.
Right. Okay, he's also accusing Comey of perjury. Do you think that that is a solid accusation?
It is hard to imagine. I've been on the committee for 2.5 years. Director Comey has once or twice a month testified to the Intelligence Committee. He is the last person in the world, I would imagine, who would lie under oath. Whether you agree with him or his decisions or not, he is, by all accounts, a very straight shooter.
Did it surprise you when Comey admitted that he had gotten his friends to leak some of the conversations that he had had with the president coming from an FBI director? Did that surprise you?
It surprised me. It seemed a little bit out of character with him. I'm not sure what he did violate any rule or law. I mean, I know they're filing a complaint with that, but I'm not sure this is classified information.
So you don't think that that's anything that he personally has to worry about as far as any charges being brought against him for doing that?
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
So what do you foresee coming up next? What can we expect, not only for Comey, but also for our President of the United States as a result of this? Well,
let's not forget the obvious. There continues to be an investigation into the Russian involvement in our democratic process. D&I Clapper called this more sinister or more important than Watergate. That investigation continues on the House and the Senate side and in the Justice Department side with Mr. Mueller. So those investigations continue. We review documents. We interview witnesses. There's travel involved. So while we've had distraction and now I think evidence of obstruction from the White House, the American public has an absolute right to know what took place. We're going to go forward.
It's interesting to hear you say obstruction from the White House, because there are a lot of people out there who listened to the FBI, the former FBI director, and after they listened to him, they said, oh, well, the president didn't do anything that maybe somebody else would not have done. They did not see that it portrayed him as being guilty of anything.
Yeah, I tell folks on both sides, this is a process. You don't stop a trial a quarter of the way through and say, okay, is the person guilty or not? You know, it's not time to talk about impeachment. It's not time to say the president didn't do anything wrong or there wasn't Russian involvement. There's evidence of all these things. Let the process take its course. We believe in this process. To go forward is premature.
Okay, well, I think that's practical. We appreciate you coming in and joining us this morning, because I think there's going to be a lot more coming out of this, and it's interesting to get your perspective on it. So thank you for being here.
Anytime.